Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Budget Magic. And this week I am super excited for a bunch of reasons. Most importantly, it's Kaladesh Standard time. We've been waiting and waiting, but the time has come. We get to play with some super sweet new Kaladesh cards. But secondly, this deck is absurd. This deck is so incredibly good. I can't even overstate how amazing this deck has been. It is fun to play. It is super, super competitive. It is super cheap. It is everything you want in a Budget Magic deck. Of course, we're talking about Temur Summonings. So, I mentioned in one of my brewing articles during Kaladesh spoiler season that I thought Metallurgic Summonings was one of the most underrated cards in all of Kaladesh. So, I set out to build a deck around that card, and it is everything I could have hoped it would have been, and more. A quick reminder before we break down the deck: if you enjoy Budget Magic and you enjoy this Temur Summonings deck, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down the corner of your screen. Closing in on 50,000 subscribers, it would be amazing if you could help us reach that goal. Anyway, let's talk Temur Summonings in Kaladesh Standard. So, of course, the namesake card is Metallurgic Summonings, a 5-mana enchantment that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get an XX colorless construct artifact creature token, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So if you cast a 3-mana instant or sorcery, you get a 3/3, 6 mana, you get a 6/6, etc., etc., etc. So it wants you to play a lot of spells, and then if you get 6 artifacts on the battlefield or more, you can pay 5, sack it, and you get all the instants and sorceries in your graveyard back to your hand. So you can play other artifacts, of course, but if you get up to casting 6 instant or sorcery spells and nothing dies, you'll have 6 artifacts, then you can reuse all the instants and sorceries that are in your graveyard. So there's kind of 2 aspects of it. For our deck, the big payoff is the first one. Cast an instant, get an XX with the converted mana cost equal to the spell's converted mana cost. So that's kind of what this deck is built around. And when we started building it, there's 2 cards that really stuck out as being absolutely absurd with Metallurgic Summoning. So the 2 cards, the big payoff cards that win us the game, are Part the Water Veil and Nissa's Renewal. So if you think about it, these cards are both 6 mana, so it means when we cast them, if we have a Metallurgic Summonings on the battlefield, we're going to get a 6/6 artifact token, which is already huge, plus they have another effect. So kind of what we want to do is this. So on turn 4, we play our Metallurgic Summonings. On turn 5, we can Nissa's Renewal. We get a 6/6, we gain 7 life, and get 3 more lands. So the next turn, we're going to have 9 or 10 mana. And then, when we untap the following turn, and the nice thing about Nissa's Renewal is, even if we're not very stable and we're about to die to an aggressive deck, once we slam this, the combination of life gain and getting a 6/6 almost always stabilizes us for a turn. So in the next turn, we can Awaken Apart the Water Veil, which gives us a 6/6 land with haste from Awaken, so we can attack for 12 with the Nissa's Renewal token and the Awaken land. Plus, it gets us a 6/6 for Metallurgic Summonings by casting the Part the Water Veil. So all of a sudden, on turn 5 and 6, we're going from not much going on to having at least 18 power worth of 6/6s on the battlefield. Plus, then we get the extra turn from Part the Water Veil, so we attack for... I don't know if I'm describing this well. I'm overexcited. So, Metallurgic Summonings turn 4. Turn 5, Nissa's Renewal, make a 6/6, get a bunch of lands. Turn 6, we get to Awaken Apart the Water Veil, attack with 2 6/6s from the Awaken land and the token from Nissa's Renewal. And then, we get an extra turn. So, on our extra turn, we also have a 6/6 from casting Part the Water Veil with Metallurgic Summonings. So, we get to attack with at least 3 6/6s, and that usually just wins us the game. We've gained 7 life, we've made 3 6/6s, we've taken extra turn, game over on turn 6. So that's kind of the main plan of the deck, is to slam the Metallurgic Summonings, then play these cards. The nice thing is the deck has a lot of resilience. Natural Connection and Cultivator's Caravan help us ramp into our Metallurgic Summonings. Remember when we were just talking about the turns? Turn 4 Metallurgic Summoning. Well, these are the cards that allow us to play Metallurgic Summonings on turn 4. They also do some other things. So Natural Connections is an instant speed rampant growth for 3 mana. And why that sounds horrible, in our deck, it's actually pretty relevant because it means it creates a 3/3 at instant speed with our Metallurgic Summonings. So we can just use this as a 3/3 for 3 hasty blocker when we have a Metallurgic Summonings on the battlefield. So even though it's overpriced as a Rampant Growth, it's really good with Metallurgic Summonings. Way better than a literal Rampant Growth would be because the token's bigger and it's instant speed. Cultivator's Caravan, on the other hand, lets us do some cool tricks. The main purpose is to ramp us into our Metallurgic Summonings, but it can become a 5/5 vehicle if we crew 3. So a lot of times what'll happen is we'll have the Cultivator's Caravan to ramp, and when we go into beatdown mode, sometimes our opponent has blockers. We need additional creatures to attack with when we're swinging with our 6/6s. We can cast something like Natural Connections, make a Summoning Sick 3/3, tap the 3/3, make Cultivator's Caravan into a 5/5, have another big beater to make sure we can close out the game when we're kind of comboing off, even through our opponent's blockers. The rest of the deck is built around cycling through our deck to find our pieces. So we want a Metallurgic Summonings, we want Nissa's Renewals and Part the Water Veils, we want lots of copies of those cards. Cathartic Reunion and Tormenting Voice are super powerful in this deck. For one thing, they give us something to do just on turn 2. We discard random non-Metallurgic Summonings, Part the Water Veil, and this is Renewal cards to get new cards. But in the late game, they're 2 mana, make a 2/2, keep us finding more spells, to keep triggering our Metallurgic Summonings. They also help us with the combo off. Sometimes we want to take 2 extra turns in a row to win with Part the Water Veil with Metallurgic Summonings on the battlefield. And being able to discard 3 bad cards, or cards that aren't good in that situation, to get 3 fresh cards, essentially with Cathartic Reunion. I mean, we're only discarding 2, but we're also losing the Cathartic Reunion, so it's a 3 for 3 swap. Is super powerful. Tormenting Voice is the same thing, except it's only 2 cards. I will say, usually Cathartic Reunion is better, but sometimes Tormenting Voice is much better if we are somehow empty-handed and we draw a Tormenting Voice. We only need 1 more card to be able to cycle it. With Cathartic Reunion, we got to draw 2 cards. And then Glimmer of Genius, oh, this card has been so good. So Scry 2, Draw 2 is already really powerful. We don't really care about the energy. The big deal here is it's instant speed, which means once we get a Metallurgic Summonings on the battlefield, it just becomes really hard for our opponent to attack profitably, because they never know when we're going to play a Glimmer of Genius, draw some cards, find more combo pieces, and also get a 4/4 blocker to just eat whatever they're attacking with. Then, the reason we decided to go red was basically looking at the week 1 metagame. So, when I first built this deck, I was straight green-blue, more counters, same basic idea, but it was straight green-blue. I realized after looking at the week 1 meta with all these aggressive decks with small creatures and also with Smuggler's Copter, we need to be able to deal with those things. So Harness Lightning is a great way to deal with Smuggler's Copter, and occasionally it deals with bigger things. I've definitely had times where we kill a X1 and then we can kill an X5 with the second one. And since we have Cathartic Reunion and all this card draw, we cycle through our deck really well to find our stuff. Radiant Flames lets us just wipe away DePaulas and Toolcraft Exemplars and all that stuff. Very strong. Also can do some cool tricks because of Converge. Normally, I think of Radiant Flames as 3 mana, 3 damage to all creatures, but in our deck, we can actually kind of control that. With a Metallurgic Summonings on the battlefield, we can, say our opponent plays an Ishkana, gets all those spider tokens, we can Radiant Flames X2, intentionally only paying 2 colors of mana. So what that's going to do is make us a 3/3 token and wipe away all the spiders. Sometimes we just X1, sometimes I've even intentionally just cast Radiant Flames, not killing anything, to make a 3/3 and get more artifacts and get more threats on the battlefield. So it works really well with our plan. As far as the mana base, Wandering Fumarole and Lumbering Falls, not many copies, but they work sort of like Cultivator's Caravan. We get all this mana on the battlefield, we're comboing off attacking with 6/6s. Sometimes we need to get in more damage. Wandering Fumarole and Lumbering Falls let us do that. Some Cinder Glades, and then a bunch of basics. Because we have Natural Connections and Nissa's Renewal, we really want to have a lot of basics in our deck to search out with those, because we want to make sure we're finding stuff, even on the second Nissa's Renewal, third Nissa's Renewal. If we're not getting lands, it gets much worse. As far as the sideboard, Fevered Visions is our trump card against control decks. This gives us a second way to just win the game. Against control decks, Metallurgic Summonings is usually just game over, regardless of what happens after that, unless they happen to have very limited answers like Anguish Unmaking. Metallurgic Summonings is hard to kill, so like blue-black control, blue-white control, they don't have that many possible ways to kill it, and just killing our construct tokens isn't going to win the game. Fevered Visions essentially works the same way. We just slam it on turn 3, we keep drawing extra cards, our opponent is taking 2 damage every turn. It can also keep Planeswalkers under control, Lilianas and things like that, that could potentially be problematic. So it's just super good in those matchups. Also is a hedge against Lost Legacy. Lost Legacy is beatable, but it's very good against our deck. Get rid of all our Metallurgic Summonings, get rid of all maybe our Part the Water Veils. It makes it much more difficult for us to win. Fevered Visions gives us a backup plan, so if they do Lost Legacy, all our Metallurgic Summonings, we have another path to victory, so it's very helpful there as well. We have the last Radiant Flames and a couple of Lightning Axes, just more removal, nothing too exciting. Lightning Axe can hit bigger creatures, which is relevant. Sometimes we do want to kill an Ishkana or something like that. A bunch of artifact removal and Plummet to deal with Smuggler's Copter, more answers to that, and other vehicles, other artifacts as well. And then 3 negates and 2 revolutionary rebuffs. We have some matchups where our Harness Lightnings and Radiant Flames are just not good, so we just take those out, bring in things like negate and revolutionary rebuff. That's mostly control matchups, but that's kind of our control matchup package. Also helps us force our combo pieces through opposing counter spells. And that is Temur Summonings for Kaladesh Standard, and this deck is just absurdly good. It is insane to play. I've played so many matches with this deck. I've talked about this before. One of the ways I judge budget Magic decks is how many matches I play with them. And no, sometimes I play 5 matches, do the videos, kind of put the deck on the shelf. This one, I think I've played 15 matches with Temur Summoning so far, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the record is absurd. If you want a discussion on the record and the rest of the deck, make sure to check out the article that's linked in the description, because in those 50 matches, our win percentage is literally off the charts. It is so insane. So I think this deck is legitimately very strong. People just are not prepared for Metallurgic Summonings. It fights through a lot of hate. It can beat control decks. It can beat aggressive decks. It is very good, and I'm super, super excited to have this deck, because it is everything you want in a budget deck. It's cheap, it is awesomely fun to play, it has these awesome big turn finishes, it can grind out value, can fight through counters, can win through hate like Lost Legacy, can beat Smuggler's Copter. It is just everything I want in a budget Magic deck, all rolled up into one. So make sure to check out the article if you want a more in-depth discussion. Anyway, that's been our deck tag for Temur Summonings. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the gameplay videos, and I will talk to you soon.